Being a data center expert, I go to the UN. We work with a lot of nations around the world. I'm in the world of AI and technology. I should be defending it, but
This is Mehdi Paryavi. He's the chairman of the International Data Center Authority. He's one of the world's leading voices on data centers, AI, compute, and infrastructure.
if you don't want to be enslaved by other nations, you need to own your own infrastructure.
We discussed how compute is going to become every country's new sovereign currency.
What visibility do you have of Elon building his data center in 19 days?
I don't believe that such a thing exists. The only way forward to meet endgame in terms of AI is nuclear. You know, the entire continent of Africa has 35 gigawatt of power.
So to power one cluster of data centers, we're talking a third of Africa's power capacity.
Exactly. Guess how much China is using?
He's incredibly worried about this arms race and how it could lead to the end of humanity.
You have companies who are $4 trillion. These entities have better visibility sometimes than some governments. It's not comforting to read that these guys are buying islands and building bunkers and preparing for the end of the world.
Why governments are redesigning entire economies around data, AI, power, and compute.
What is it that you're seeing that makes you worry? Because you're at the coalface of this. So Mehdi, thanks for coming along.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Super excited, especially after I saw a Harvard report earlier this week, which spoke about the fact that 92% of the US's GDP of the first half of this year, they reckon that 92% of the growth came from investment in AI.
Yep,
Mega.
it's huge.
And you are sat at the heart of that
Yeah.
with this explosion of data centers.
Yeah, we're seeing it every day. We're right in the middle of it.
And so you were saying earlier, you're just continually traveling.
Yeah, it's 1 week in Singapore, 1 week in Nigeria, 1 week in Europe. It's all over the place. The world is expanding in every direction with regards to AI and digital infrastructure. So you just got to be there.
Yeah,
You
incredible.
have to be there. Yeah.
Why are we seeing this explosion with data centers? Obviously, it's linked to AI, but why data centers in particular?
Because everything you hear about AI is meaningless without the capacity to compute.
Right.
And the capacity to compute comes from digital infrastructure, namely data centers. So you need to have the right amount of data center capacity to put the right amount of GPUs to build the right amount of, AI capacity. It all ends with data centers. You have to have the right amount of data centers. And we cannot build enough and we cannot build fast enough.
It's incredible, especially after I saw old Jensen from NVIDIA
Yeah.
talking this week, I think it was, about the fact that literally the way he was articulating, we cannot have too many data centers. We cannot have too much infrastructure. The world just needs to build.
No, we can't have too much of it. I always tell people ask me, can we overbuild? I say you cannot overbuild, but you can build. You need to make sure you build the right kind of data centers because chips are changing very, quickly, very rapidly. And, an average data center would typically take you 24 months of construction time.
Right.
But if the chip is changing every 6 months, how do you even build something that will sustain a few years? So a lot of times, at least in the recent months, we've seen the data center design specs already obsolete before the data center construction was completed. So that's where the confusion comes from. And, how do you build around the chip? And how do you build a data center which is going to be minimum $2 billion per site? I mean, we were used to $2-3 billion data centers. Now they're announcing $25 billion, $30 billion sites. So how do you put such an investment, which is more than GDP of some countries, in one building, and then it expires in a few months? So
Yes.
That's the main challenge.
It's interesting you should say that because that is probably my biggest question. They are accelerating with this investment. And yet the technology is evolving so quickly.
Yeah.
It seems like there's a different processor or different chip or, different piece of infrastructure that's kind of exponentially changing the way that these data centers and infrastructure is being built or how the foundations of what AI sits on is evolving so quickly. So I guess the biggest question for me is there risk attached to the rate at which they're doing this, or is it just about being adaptive?
So I just chaired the conference in DC, and they asked me, "Is this a bubble?" And I said, "No, it's not a bubble." And the reason it's not a bubble is that every piece of land that's being sold for data centers is backed by a contract. It's not, nobody's speculating here.
Right.
These are all contract-backed deals, long-term contracts. The other reason is, look at NVIDIA. It's a $4 trillion company. And think about it. What will happen to the economy of US and the world if its stock price collapses? It will be a global depression. Now, what do you need to avoid the global depression? You need to keep the deal flow.
Yep.
NVIDIA needs to sell chips. For them to sell chips, they need data centers. And for data centers to be there, you need power. And it ends with power. It's a power play, end of the day.
Yes.
And we have a global shortage on this. So everybody is trying to get their hands on whatever power they can.
To understand that, the reason they're scaling at this rate is because they believe that there's a direct relationship between AI capability and the compute, the amount of power, computational power that you're able to feed it. Is it as simple as that?
Yes, as simple as that. I did a recent interview and I said that HPC, which stands for high performance compute, can ultimately replace GDP. So countries will be ranked by their ability to produce data. And if you cannot, because we're going to be living in a token economy, so if you cannot produce enough tokens, if you cannot produce enough data, then you're not a sovereign nation anymore and you're just going to lag behind. So it's all about how much high performance compute, how much computing capabilities and capacities can you produce as a nation. And I said it in my Oman speech, and I said we're living in an era that if you cannot produce your own data, you're not a sovereign nation anymore, because you have to rely on other nations to render data for you. So that's where the AI sovereignty topics come in. How do you build sovereign AI? The first and foremost thing is be able to produce your own data in your own country. Right. And a lot of countries don't have that privilege because they just don't have the power.
So this AI sovereignty is an area to really get stuck into. So what you're saying there, in simple terms, is that a country will lose its sovereignty unless it builds native local data centers that can drive and own its own AI infrastructure.
Of course, it's like anything else. It's like your food security. It's like your, anything that comes into your country. Right. If you rely on other nations for those goods and services, yep, you always have to think about what if they don't supply you anymore. And if you build a digital economy and your livelihood depends on data and live stream of data that needs to basically be uninterrupted, 24/7, and somebody just doesn't like you and you're depending on them, what happens? And we're living in a very volatile political environment. So
yes, and there's never been a greater time or period of awareness of that when we see Europe had this massive dependency on gas for Russia, or we've seen now that the US has a dependency on raw earth materials to China. So there is a real, we saw that in the supply chain in the pandemic, that we were incredibly dependent on our pharmaceuticals for manufacturing in China. Mm-hmm. So you're right, there's never been a period where people are so aware of their interdependency on other states.
Yes.
And what you're talking about here is the national infrastructure of the future of someone's economy has to be localized if they want to retain control of it.
Yeah, if you don't want to be enslaved by other nations, you need to own your own infrastructure, for sure.
And I guess more than that, it's part of the race for this, because I've heard a lot around the Middle East in particular that they're really keen to invest ahead of what they need so they can be the key supplier to other nations, which are behind the curve. Is that right?
Yes. So Middle Eastern countries, in my opinion, they're becoming pioneers in this space for multiple reasons. First of all, they're nation states where they have visionary leaders who can decide and execute. They don't get stuck in the political, challenges that we in the West have to be faced with.
Yeah.
Second, they're enriched with a lot of cash. And third, they have realized that their oil-based economy is going to expire very soon. So they need to transition, and they need to build a digital economy. And with that in mind, they're taking pretty much the right steps forward, and they're investing in all the right places. You know, they're buying up all the right companies, and not only they're building capacity in the Middle East, they're also investing outside in other countries. And you know, if you look at this, if you think of data centers as data factories or data refineries,
Yep.
look at Saudi Aramco. Saudi Aramco is the largest company in the world, where it was established not to just produce oil, but to refine the oil and create petrochemicals, benzene, and other refined goods, which can be sold at more expensive prices. Imagine if you plugged in your source of energy into a refinery, and as an output, instead of benzene, you got data, and data is more valuable than gold. So there is no better business to be in, and they have realized that. So they want to use the scarce resources that the world needs and plug them into data factories of the future and create data refineries around the world, which are data centers, basically.
Yeah. And if you look at that kind of geopolitical landscape, right, how would you assess how everyone else is getting on? So Middle East doing well, pioneering, leading in it. We've got the US, they seem to be making some big plays. How would you assess the overarching landscape?
US has the ace because it controls the GPUs, it controls, you know, majority of LLMs, and, you know, it's the source of technology and innovation still today. It's by far the biggest. However, if it doesn't make wise choices, it's not always going to remain the same, because Singapore is using a big portion of its grid towards its data centers. US is using a few percent of its grid for data centers.
Yep.
I think something around 8%. Guess how much China is using?
No idea.
Less than 1%.
Wow.
And they're sitting on abundance of energy. Imagine what will happen if these guys unleash it, if these guys just decide to go full blast. So China has a untapped potential to lead this space if they wanted to. And I think their strategy is to use resources from outside their country as much as they can and then tap into their own resources. But in general, is it wise for us to always be having two superpowers argue and fight? Who's going to pay for this? Ultimately, potentially global citizens. Or is it better to come up with some sort of strategic, you know, roadmap where these countries can collaborate? It becomes very political, actually. It's a political topic. I personally am at the belief that the world has to collaborate. We cannot afford to be always in confrontations. And this is going to cost all of us. So with AI, the speed of everything is increasing. So the problem is we're lacking decision makers that can make decisions as fast as the evolution of technology. So the legislators, the policymakers, they can't wrap their head around the evolution of technology, and therefore they can't decide for it.
Yeah, I'm worried about that. I think it feels like they're going to only start to react quickly off the back of a problem. Does that make sense?
That's human,
rather than
human nature. Yeah.
And hopefully that's going to be like a warning rather than a
hopefully not a catastrophe,
rather than a major shock.
No.
But it does feel like, I mean, interestingly, I actually sat down with the head of research for UK government policy. So he sits in the government. He's an ex-Google DeepMind. He was the 4th or 5th employee in there. And super bright guy, Chris Summerfield. And I was talking to him about it. And actually, the UK is fairly advanced in it from a policy perspective. Europe's actually doing pretty well. But the issue with that is they've got this kind of, you know, the last thing you want to do is be last to the race, you know, last in the race, winning the race or getting to the front of that race because you've ended up tying a load of complex legislation and slowing it, your industry and your nation down. And so there's a fine balance there, isn't there? Being able to legislate, but also propel growth.
Exactly. You need to create legal frameworks that are safeguarding your national priorities and sensitivities. But at the same time, they shouldn't prevent investment. They shouldn't prevent growth. And as you said, there's a fine line between there. So
yes, governments aren't brilliant at getting that stuff.
They're
right.
not brilliant at all. No.
I was sat here with a guy called Ben Warner, who was the chief data scientist and advisor for data science to the UK Prime Minister during COVID from 2019 to 2021. And he gave me real insight. This was only last week, but it was Monday. Gave me real insight into how government operates and how difficult it is to get things to move, to get movement.
Yeah, by the time they get something approved, technology has moved on.
Yeah.
So this is, sometimes getting a budget for building data center in government takes 5 years, and who's going to wait 5 years? So, and this is why governments are also losing their sovereignty, because it's easier for them to just outsource than to build proper infrastructure. And therefore, you end up with governments who just give all the data to some outsourced company, and God knows where the data will sit. So that creates another layer of concern.
What do you see as the biggest risks of that when you talk about that sovereignty and losing it?
So my biggest problem with governments not owning government cloud is that you end up bailing out private entities, because just like the banking crisis in the US, we had to bail out the banks because we just couldn't let them go down.
Yes.
What if Amazon or Google or Microsoft, they make wrong decisions? We just can't let them go down because they have government data. So we're literally signing a blank check saying that, guys, no matter what you guys do, we're here for you. And that, I don't think that's wise for governments to do.
Yeah. Especially internationally. You're right.
Internationally, it's even more concerning, because, you're dealing with a foreign entity, foreign company that can switch you off, can raise prices, you would be subject to some sort of embargo or tariff, and then all of a sudden their dynamics changes. And how do you deal with that? Are you ready? Can you roll back?
Yeah.
So these are serious concerns.
Yeah, it's just a traditional control problem, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there has to be, again, fine line between control and evolution and expansion. Governments are usually not very good in building infrastructure and running them. So I agree that they've done a poor job in the past. But regardless, the solution is not to completely shut down all your infrastructure and just outsource it. The solution is to fix the problem.
Yep.
Why are we so poor? Why are we not so brilliant? And how can we fix these problems? How can we create competency within government? I think these are the core issues that, they need to be addressed.
Help me understand the scale of these data centers.
Mm-hmm. So we used to spec data centers that were kilowatts, then megawatts. And now we're dealing with gigawatt sites. Just to give you an idea of the scale of this, there's a place outside of Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia, called Loudoun County.
Yep.
This place is by far the most dense data center footprint in the world. It's 6 times larger than anything else. It is now, they're pushing a pipeline of 12 gigawatts now. This space alone has more power necessary to fuel countries. The entire continent of Africa has 35 gigawatt of power. Right?
Whoa.
So that's the scale of this.
So to power one cluster of data centers just outside Washington, you're talking a third of Africa's current power capacity.
Exactly. And that should give you a scale of what's happening. And there is a lot of pushback, and there's a lot of environmental concerns. A lot of communities say, why do we have data centers in our backyard? But the problem is not data centers. The problem is our consumption. We are consumers and producers of data. Data centers are not the drivers here. They're enablers. So for as long as, I said that on BBC, I said for as long as you take all these pictures and put on the cloud, for as long as you demand new apps, new services, you need data centers. There is no other way. So, a search on ChatGPT versus a search on Google, there's a big difference on how much carbon and how much, power you consume. Do I need to use ChatGPT for all the simple questions? Can I just read a book sometimes? These are key questions. And for as long as you rely on AI for everything in life, you need to pay for the power and for the carbon footprint. Now, one other thing about the environment that I always say is that U.S. hosts more than 40% of the world's data centers. So more than 40%, I think 44 or 45% of the world's data centers are in the U.S.
Right.
Yet, it produces so much less carbon than India and China. That's an indication that data centers, they don't run in silos. They actually make other industry verticals smarter, because that's the benefit of digitization. That's the benefit of digital transformation. Data centers enable healthcare, enable transport, aviation, retail, to just produce for less. So cost of production, every other industry, because of data centers, because of technology, will just be less in terms of carbon footprint. So a case of U.S. being the world's largest host of data centers in the world, and at the same time not being the largest producer of carbon, is a good explanation that data centers don't harm the environment. They're just part of the ecosystem that we live in. And you have to accept that. And for as long as you say, I don't want data center near my backyard, I want it near my neighbor's backyard, you're also paying for transport costs of data, the latency, all of that. So, people just don't know what it means to use their phone, what it means to use, all the benefits of the digital era.
Yeah.
And,
Do you think there's going to be a direct correlation between the growth of these data centers and a drop in the price of goods and services? Can you see that happening?
I don't foresee a drop in price of anything in our world today.
Right.
I think inflation is a reality, and it's just here to stay because of the turmoil in the world today. Yes, data centers naturally should reduce the cost because cost of production should reduce because of automation, because of less labor, and However, I just feel like our world is becoming a more expensive world, and cost of everything is on the rise.
There's no doubt. It's the cost of stuff has just gone bananas,
Of course.
Yeah, you feel that in the US as well, just as much as we do here in the UK.
Currency is becoming extremely invaluable now.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, but I'm very hopeful that our journey in AI and all the technology that we're deploying is a route to a world of abundance where actually, and I think Sam Altman has said quite a few times is he expects and hopes that AI will become only marginally more expensive than electricity over a long period of time.
Yeah.
Do you share that optimism?
Yes and no. I feel like AI is going to bring a lot of benefits, and it's going to bring a lot of harm to this current environment that we're in.
Right.
Because we're just not educated for it. We're not civilized enough to adopt AI, in my opinion.
Right.
Look at, just walk by restaurants. I was just walking here, and spouses were sitting across the table, and they were on each other, phones. They weren't looking at each other. It's just become a way of life. People are in their own little world, being fed what they want to be fed through their smart devices. And imagine a world where AI decides everything for you, plans for you, analyzes for you, reads for you, tells you what to eat, tells you where to go, tells you what to buy from, grocery store. Where does that leave you as a human being for you to analyze, think, actually, do something on your own, independent of technology? I was in an AI forum, and they said, what are the things that AI will take away from us? And people were just whiteboarding. And I said, one of the most important things that I think it will take away from us is our independence, our right to be independent. And they said, what do you mean? I said, nobody's going to put a gun to your head to use AI. But you're going to reach a point where if you don't want to use it at school, at work, you're just going to be inferior. The result of your work is not going to be competitive enough. So therefore, you just cannot be independent from it. You just have to use it.
Yep.
And you lose your independence. And once you lose your independence, I don't know how much can some of us resist in trying to think on our own and, analyze on our own. And like with any other muscle in your body, if you don't use your brain too much, you're just going to lose it. So I foresee a day where people have to subscribe to gyms just to do brain exercise, do puzzles and do whatever, just to keep their brains healthy, because our forefathers, they were healthy because just, the way of life would make them physically fit. We go to gyms every morning because we sit behind the desk all day and we need to get the muscles moving. We need to get the blood circulation. Same thing with our brains.
We've got like a biological vulnerability to AI.
I really think so. And I mean, I'm in the world of AI and technology. I should be defending it, but I feel like it's the last thing that remained of us, which was our cognition. It's the first time we're in the history of human beings, we're creating a tool that is stronger than us in cognition.
Yeah.
We've always created tools, bulldozers, airplanes that, just made us do things faster and stronger and better, but not to think for us. Yeah. They could, even calculators, computers, they would calculate for us, but they wouldn't think for us. Cognition is our last stance, basically. And if we lose that, I don't know.
It's really interesting you raise that. It's something that I've been talking about recently. So I had a conversation with Tom Chatfield about this critical thinking. He's obsessed with critical thinking and the impact of AI. He started with gaming, actually. So he'd done a TED Talk back in 2010 that games have the ability to manipulate your motivation. He now rolls that forward into exactly the same argument. But the issue is that all of the kind of industrial revolutions, everything we've been through before, have been tools that we've used. Cognitively, we've applied. I think that most people are looking at this for their answers, that they are deferring it for their cognition, which is exactly what you're saying, isn't it, really?
I feel like we have no idea what we're getting into.
Yeah.
And that's concerning.
I'm in the same place, which is building an AI native operating system. But I feel the sense to not stop, but to fly the flag of the risks. It's more important to have founders or leaders in the space like yourself who are actually prepared to say, this is happening, and I'm one of the people that's at the forefront of it, but I'm going to raise the flag and go, guys.
Of course, we're all residents of the same planet, and we have family, we have kids, and you care for the future, and you don't want dumb kids, you don't want, isolated and abnormal families. Look at, I used to sit down and I was just telling somebody for lunch, I used to listen to my grandfather's stories and I would never get tired of them. Right. I don't think my grandkids will ever listen to my stories. They want 15-second clips. They want quick things. And this is all before AI, by the way.
Yes.
Kids are fact-checking their parents. Therefore, parents have no more credibility. I believe that even if your parents are wrong, at least they care for you the most. So having some sort of credibility goes a long way. When kids become your teacher eventually, and at very young age, and they say, Dad, you're wrong, Mom, you're wrong, and there is basically no ground for respect towards an elderly. I feel like there is no more ground for family, which is the first circle of society. And if that breaks, then the society breaks. And you're already seeing the big divide around the world. So I don't know how AI will even help that. I think it will just accelerate it because, so one of the benefits I hear people talk about is, the therapies that people get through AI. They ask AI about their psychological situations and mentoring and all of that. I don't know. I personally believe that we still need the human touch. We still need the eye contact. We still need the human interaction. And we still need to believe in each other. One of the biggest drawbacks of AI is that it's going to take away the trust that we have among us. And we're just going to trust the AI. We're not going to trust each other.
We'll come back to your moral compass in a minute, because it's interesting that you've got such a strong, view, and I can sense that you're touched by it. Does that make sense? Like you have a deep rooted.
I can see it. I see it coming.
Yes. The one thing I would say to it, though, right, is that we adjust. Okay, and so if we think about our schooling over the years, education has evolved.
Yes.
Slower than it's needed to, right? So,
definitely slower.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Same as mine. So, but if I think about it, primary school, education now, PSHE, we have something called PSHE, but that addresses mental health and awareness of social media and those sorts of things, right? So they're not massively, they're not completely game changing, but they're better preparing children for life ahead of them.
Sure.
I guess that when we start to see, and there's a huge amount of studies on the brain, right? I was sat here with another guy yesterday, also called Tom. So Tom Carlson is at UCL University, and he's a professor there, and he's leading on neural brain interfaces, and a bit like Neuralink, but he does the non-invasive work, and they're controlling wheelchairs with thoughts and really interesting stuff. But what's interesting is when you talk to him about the amount of studying of the brain, does that make sense? Like there's more and more investment into this place, especially as people think they can commercialize it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elon. MIT have done a report around, the impact of using these LLMs. Someone debunked that, actually, saying that they think it's BS. It's not actually the way to analyze the impact of the brain. That was Tom Chatfield again. But we will see that decline. It's not like, does that make sense? We will be running studies. We'll be understanding it. And I guess we will then, if we can see that cognitive decline, I think that is something that we will move rapidly to address. And like you say, like the cognitive workout, it might have, education and environments might be needed to design and address that, no?
The biggest problem is that will we have a chance to decide in the future? So I'm of the belief that this is the last time humanity will decide for itself.
Right.
After that, AI will decide for you. I mean, as we go along, and this is happening very quickly, you start to outsource your decision-making and your analytical capabilities more and more to AI.
Yep.
And relieve yourself from the pressure and the stress. And at the beginning, it sounds comforting and easy, but then human beings are going to dumbify, and we're just going to become lesser people. And AI is going to become stronger and stronger because there is 8 billion people training it and feeding it with gigawatts of power and abundance of information and unlimited amount of communication. So I don't know if we can decide for ourselves in the future. So this is the concern I have, and I don't know if even if we decided, we could go back, because certain things, like we can't go back. Most of us in city, we can't go back to agriculture world. It's almost impossible. How do you demolish all these buildings and build farms? Once you get into a new era, you're in it, and it's very difficult to roll back. Do we need all this technology? Do we need all this pushing off the envelope? That's an ethical and moral question. This is where psychologists and sociologists and economists and they all need to sit together, and I don't think they're sitting together, honestly. I feel like the big tech is pushing things so fast that nobody has the mental capacity or the leisure to sit down and think and plan. The times of philosophizing and thinking about things and planning things for the future are gone, are long gone. And one of the biggest problems in our world today, nobody thinks long term anymore. Everything is short term.
4-year cycles, coincidentally.
4-year cycles, maybe less.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's the maximum of 4 years, and it winds down, doesn't it?
A year before your term is over, you need to just be politically right because you're running for re-election again, and then. Yeah. So, anyways,
what is it that you're seeing that makes you worry like that? Because you're at the coalface of this.
Yeah. So first of all, let me tell you that I believe that it's inevitable, it's unstoppable, it has to happen. We can't prevent technology from advancing, that's for sure. What I'm concerned about is our ability to put some framework around it. A proper and robust framework that doesn't slow down the growth of technology. But at the same time, it gives us the tools necessary to stay human beings and keep some abilities to ourselves. So that's my only concern. But technology has to advance. You can't prevent it from advancing. You can think about it as, I was thinking the other day, maybe imagine if all of us had access to nuclear, warheads, and it's something that governments have access to, certain governments, and it's under tight control. I believe that maybe a light version of AI should be available to kids and families, and then a more stronger one for, I don't know, pharmaceutical, astronomical research, and there has to be categories of this that are available to the society based on their, roles and responsibilities.
Almost like the pharmaceutical industry, where
Yes.
you can only get up to 20 milligrams of paracetamol or
Exactly.
aspirin or whatever. Actually,
Exactly.
so you're saying limiting the capability. We do that in the drug
I
industry.
think we
don't
should do that. I mean, that's, I think, one of the easy ways of still keeping the society moving and thinking and being logical and wise.
I'm trying to work out why you're alarmed by it, why you have this, this view with such clarity. And I'm guessing there's a massive difference between me and the general public who are seeing, someone's investing 100 billion in a data center, or 50 billion here, or 20 billion there. And then, whereas you are actually seeing the bricks hit the ground,
Yep.
the technology being ordered, and the magnitude of that.
Yep.
Because that's not just happening in an isolated way; it's happening globally, right?
It's happening everywhere, and countries are investing on this at the highest levels. Become a national priority for many countries. The reason I'm concerned is because, my wife used to say I'm a living GPS, because I used to drive without getting lost, and today I'm a very horrible GPS because I need a GPS to guide me around, because I just outsourced that part of my brain to GPS.
Right.
And I think when ChatGPT first came along, I tried to use it a few times, and it was so easy and convenient, and I was losing my confidence in myself to write, because one of the good things in me is writing. I write a lot.
Yeah.
And I just closed my account. I said, I'm losing my confidence, because if I rely on this to write for me, I'm gonna lose it in a few weeks, and I don't think many people can do that. So that's the issue. I mean, anything that you might be good at, whether you're good at analytics, whether you're good at imagination, creative work, or writing, or whatever, if you outsource that to AI within a matter of few weeks, you're never gonna going back. There is no going back for you. And I've seen it with myself. So
I talk about this a lot, but it feels like we're the journeyman. Like we're the guys which are kind of the guinea pigs on this.
yes, of course.
We're kind of going through the transition, managing the change. And I guess we have to hope that it might affect us more. We will be the people which learn the bad way, where it has an impact on us.
That's always the case with humanity, yes.
Yeah. And then we hopefully start to create some infrastructure in the place which protects humanity.
At the end, I'm very positive. So
Right.
I believe that there is a positive end to this world, and everything is going to be for the better, and there is more positivity than negativity.
Yes.
But I believe that it's the wise people and the critical thinkers that keep us safe. And it's very important for us to do critical thinking. It's very healthy for us to have good, healthy debates. And that's why I express my concern.
I talk about it as the delta. It's the delta of getting there. And it's the impact of that. I see a big loss of jobs.
I don't think anybody has a plan for employment, honestly. Name one job that will remain in the engineering sector, in design sector, in creative work. we used to think about upskilling. Now we have to talk about downskilling, and even waiter and waitress and plumbing and all of that stuff might also get replaced by robots. So where do we end up as human beings in terms of job and functionality? This is another major issue. What do you do with all the jobless people? I mean, companies are laying off people in thousands. Why should I hire employees? This is what business leaders are thinking. Why should I hire people who get sick, who go to sleep, who take vacations, when I can have AI agents who are flawless, who will do whatever I tell them, and they work around the clock? And then you're basically creating an AI agent, and so with agentic AI, you're creating a monster that basically is taking your job away. And you have to compete with it to keep your job, and you have no chance. It's just much bigger and much more powerful than you are. So my advice is for business leaders to hang on to their people, because your business, even with AI, is as good as the people that you have. And you need to skill your workforce to be able to use AI. Because if your company uses AI and my company uses AI, and we're both in the same business, my business and your business, we're only as good as our AIs. And if our AIs are trained the same, I don't think anybody will win. And I don't see a competitive world. And that's
the same argument with people, though, isn't it? Like, basically, if I use my people today better than you use yours, I win. So I guess AI is just a digital version of that, right?
It is. But if AI agents are trained, I mean, we're going to be living in a world where you're going to subscribe to entities that will hiring entities that will hire agents for you, AI agents. So there's going to be companies who train AI agents for your line of work, and if they train all of them the same, then you're going to do the same thing as I do. There is no creativity. There is nothing that differentiates your company with my company, unless you do your own training. So that's where keeping your own people is very important, because you train your own agents. You keep your own genius in-house, and you need people. But
if you roll that forward, if you take something like a lending platform, lending platforms, right? They compete on their ability to automate the scoring of credit, right? So it comes down to, their customers come in, and the more efficiently and effectively they can score that customer as to whether they should lend them money or not, and how much and on what terms, means they can lend more money, make more money.
Yes, of course.
And so the more efficiently and more effectively they can do that, lower default rates, they can then lower their interest rates, right?
Makes total sense.
We're competing there on technology. I just see the fact that technology is is eroding the number of people, which is your argument. I agree with that. I just don't think it's any different, refining AI employees as it is to refining the scorecard in my credit scoring technology. Do you know what I mean? Like, I agree with you. That's a tech challenge.
I agree with you. The question is, what do you do with all the thousands and millions of people who are going to not be jobless? What's the plan? Who is planning for this? Which country? Which government?
Yep.
And I haven't seen a plan.
That's what Ben was saying, the guy that was the advisor to the PM. He actually said, I'll bet you there's not one person in the British government that is designated to thinking about how do we protect employment. It will have been mentioned by people, but they will not have committed a team or people to specifically focus on that problem.
Yeah, you need a task force.
And that right now, I think you and I are aligned here. Yeah. If you were the British Prime Minister, would you assign people to that task today?
Definitely. Yesterday. I would do it yesterday.
Tomorrow, bang, straight in.
I mean, it's a problem. The problem is everybody's pushing the problem to the next administration, and hopefully the next guy was going to take the hit. But the issue is the society can be at the brink of a collapse if you don't plan in parallel to the growth of AI and technology. If you don't make a plan of what are you going to do to the society, for this economy, and for the people that live within it, the citizens of your world. I don't know if things will continue as peaceful as they are, Because, if you get enough jobless people on the streets, there's going to be revolt, there's going to be riots, there's going to be breaking of glasses and windows and shops and, robbery and theft and even killing. And in the US we have guns, so it becomes even more complicated.
Yeah. It's happening here. There's videos online all the time where people are literally, they're hood up, walking straight into a retail outlet, into superstores and Tesco's or Marks and Spencer, whatever, just literally filling bags up and walking straight out, stealing it, just absolutely nonchalantly, not hiding it, just literally overpowering people and walking straight out. And those, I think, are the signs.
Yeah.
I agree with you, which
I'm not sure if
signs.
Yeah, I'm not sure if these episodes are directly linked with AI today, but I think you're going to see a lot of such episodes in the future directly linked with AI, directly linked with joblessness. We have criminals in every society, with or without AI. But then when you need to feed your family and, in millions, and that happens in millions, then there's going to be a lot of unrest. And I don't know if societies and countries are ready for this.
The thing we're both most probably concerned about is raising the awareness of what is to come. And I think you said earlier that you can see it. It's really very clear to you where this goes.
I think the scientists that broke the atom and created the atomic power knew more than anybody else the devastation and the problems that it could have if it's in the wrong hands. So same thing, because we're at the core of it, because we're at the heart of it, because we see what's happening.
Yep.
Of course, we see the dangers more than anybody else as well.
Let's go back to that point earlier, which we spoke about, right? You mentioned that there's a direct correlation between the data center capability and AI's capability, so the size of these data centers. And so we've seen over the last 24, 36 months, significant improvements. There'll be a few people that listen to that and go, no. There's significant improvements over the last 2 years. What we started with ChatGPT and where we are today, massive. The amount of compute that is going to come online over the next, what would you say, next 36 months, 24 months, 36 months?
So today the world has about 55 gigawatt of data center capacity.
Right.
And it has to reach about 300 gigawatts by 2030. So you're talking in 4.5 years, we need to come up with 250 gigawatt of power.
Wow.
Just to, keep this flowing.
Do you think that will have a pretty linear kind of direct effect on AI's capability? Can you see it, maybe not being 5 times, but a significant impact on its capability?
The way AI works is the more it advances, the more it consumes and the more it generates data and the more it needs to analyze and the more it, again, generates data.
Yep.
So you can never run out of, more craving for further capacity.
Yes.
So we just need to continue building.
And obviously that 6 times increase is based on our current processing efficiency.
Yes.
Actually, every year, I think it's doubling, is it not?
That's a big, in my opinion, misunderstanding.
Right.
People talk about PUEs and, how data centers, that's power usage effectiveness. How the power coming into your data center versus the power that actually goes to the IT load, what's the proportion and how efficient are you? But I think being where we are and doing what we do, we see a lot of inefficient data centers and we see a lot of inefficiencies in deployments. And much of that has to do with the speed to deployment. A lot of people just want speed. They don't have time to really become innovative. Of course, becoming efficient is critical because it saves you cost. And even if you don't care about the environment, it just helps your P&L. And, if you save on power and cooling, you just make so much more money. So therefore, there's a big push for further efficiency. But I don't think it's double every year. I think it's lower than that. But yeah, we have a huge craving for power.
But processing power, so the processing power of the GPUs, is that doubling?
I don't know if it's doubling or quadrupling, but what's happening is it's exponential.
Yeah.
So think about it in gigawatts. In my world, I like to think about it in gigawatts, because I'm very connected with the earth, and everything we do has to come from this earth. End of the day, you need to power up these GPUs. How do you power them up? And then we have a map of all available energy around the world, whether it's hydro, geothermal, solar, wind, you name it, natural gas, coal. If you put all of it combined and together, you're going to exhaust this planet and not come up with enough power. The only way forward for us to meet our end game in terms of AI is nuclear. That's the only route forward. So SMRs, small modular reactors. And that's where most countries will move into, because they just don't have the resources to produce the amount of power that's required to stay sovereign. So for them to stay sovereign, they need to get nuclear. And that's why SMRs come to play.
I actually look at it as a positive. The demand for power, I believe, is going to address or expedite this kind of fusion capability. And actually, I see us getting to clean energy quicker.
Yes.
Because of the demand for it. Are you seeing that kind of attention to nuclear when you're talking about people? Which
it's
is
all about nuclear now.
Yeah,
it's
all the conversations are.
If you don't, you're not going to achieve gigawatt scale capabilities without nuclear.
So that. Does that fall into dialogue with you then? So that's very much of what
we're
you're
very
talking
much
about.
involved with this. Yes, it's part of every conversation. You go to countries, and they put everything they have on the table, and they can hardly produce 5-6 gigawatts, and then they want to have 10 gigawatt of AI capability. How can you do it without nuclear?
And talk to us about how that conversation goes. So I'm the customer, and I go, look, I want to achieve 10 gigawatt of AI capacity, right? And then you go, well, where's your power?
Where's your money?
Yeah,
that's the first question.
Money.
You need to have money to invest in your grid.
Right.
You need to produce power and distribute power. So you need to build the backbones. It's not just power, also water and human capital. So we tell countries that you can't just build data centers. They don't come naturally. You need to build an ecosystem.
Right.
So you need to create. You need to have a national roadmap and a high level vision of where the country needs to be in the next 5 to 10 years. Where do you want to be in the competitive landscape of things? And then under that overarching umbrella, what is your national standard, which is your legal framework? So you create an atmosphere of predictability. Because if you don't have a national standard, you don't have FDIs, you don't have investors. People cannot bring in money because they can't trust you. You're going to wake up tomorrow and change the laws on them, and their money is going to be trapped. So you need to have national standards. Then you need to have national education. How do you create the right skilled resources to fuel those data centers, to power them up, to run them, to maintain them? You need to have the right education system. And because we're the largest in the world in doing this, so we actually help countries build national standards, national education systems. And then how do you build your digital infrastructure? And then digital infrastructure, being your data centers, require power, you require water, require connectivity. So it's an entire ecosystem. And it requires a national will. It needs to become a national priority. And then how do you bring the nation together to stand behind this? And then how do you bring the investment piece? How do you bring the policies together? How do you bring the international players to become stakeholders of your economy? So there's a lot of factors in the play.
And it's these more autocratic kind of environments where people have a kind of more dominant kind of leadership where they're able to move much faster. And
yes, we see much more success in countries where one person makes a decision, because it's just a much faster decision-making process. And if the person in charge is a visionary, then the country is very lucky.
Does that include the US now?
I can't comment about the US. It's a very complicated case. We are in the US. Today we are leaders. I'm not sure if we're going to be leaders in the future. That's what I can tell you. And another thing I can tell you is that I'm of the belief that we need to be friends with people, not enemies. And I don't think we can go to war with every country in the world and create hard feelings everywhere. And it's just not who we are. It's just not what America was built upon. And that's my personal belief. Yeah. But I believe that the U.S. taxpayers are gonna pay for whatever decisions we make if they're wrong. And if we do not create the right alliances, if we don't create the right relationships, we're going to pay for it. So creating alliances are critical.
Do you think AI is going to polarize the world or unify it?
That's a good question. It could go both ways. But I would say polarized mostly. It's already, societies are becoming more polarized, even without AI, because when you go into your devices, if you're a CNN person and I'm a Fox Newser, I get fed everything from Fox News, you get fed everything from CNN. So I'm in my world, you're in your world, and then we come to the street. We don't believe that your world even exists. And, you know, there was a time where everybody would watch a 9 o'clock news, and, you know, you had to have some level of tolerance to listen to the other side. But now you only hear your version of the story, your narrative. And this is fueling the polarization. So this basically describes why there is such a big gap in the society. You know, we used to have a unified country in the U.S., where whoever was the U.S. president, regardless of the political party he or she came from, would basically represent America. Now we see on live news that, you know, somebody from the administration would say Democrats are doing this or Republicans are doing that. It's the entire political party is at fault in a lot of arguments and discussions and debates. And that's not right, because if you have a problem with a person or with a policy, you shouldn't accuse an entire political party. And that's just fueling, you know, all of this. So, and it's costly for the nation. We have to pay for all these, you know, U.S. is a huge country, you know. Every wrong move, every wrong sentence will cost us billions of dollars.
I can't help but think that it's going to polarize us, but over time, I think it might well unify us.
Depends who trains your AI.
I think at some point, I mean, this leads potentially into this kind of sentience, you know, argument around AI, and thinking about what level of control we might need to put in place. And the issue is that if it does get to a place where it is, let's say, sentient, it does have autonomous capabilities, right? And I'm not talking about an autonomous operating system for a business here. We're talking about these data centers becoming autonomous brains, you know, doing their own thinking, taking their own actions. Then, because of the global accessibility of this, it's not like nuclear, is it? Nuclear, you can kind of contain it. It's a huge level of investment and time and infrastructure that's needed. But this is accessible to everybody, everywhere. The barriers to AI are much lower than that of nuclear. And so my question is, I wonder whether at some point, if we do reach that level of kind of autonomy and sentience, whether we will have to unite to create a framework for all of this to operate globally.
We need to unite, but think about a Chinese AI versus a US driven AI. It's already polarized. Just saying China and US is already a dividing.
Where do you sit on the sentience thing? So do you think that there's a chance of it becoming sentient?
I don't know, honestly. I haven't thought about this deeply, but what I can tell you is that the world has to come together and create unification around what AI is going to do for this planet. That's for sure. But in the current political scene, I don't see that happening. I don't see the world coming together. Look at. We can't agree on simplest things at the United Nations. I mean, I go to the UN. We work with a lot of nations around the world.
Right.
We can't agree on the simplest things, on human rights, on many things. How can we even agree on the big tech and the AI, which is very complex, and not many people have the education or the skill required to converse about the topic? And then how can you create a unified world whereas AI is being used as a weapon, where your AI as your sovereign AI is gonna basically beat the hell out of the other country's AI?
Yeah.
So I don't see that unification happening under the current political stage, but it's something that needs to happen if we want to have a healthy world.
It will take a big event, won't it? It will take a big problem, which is a threat to everybody, a global threat, just like nuclear was.
Just like nuclear was, just like COVID was a big alarming
Yes.
shutdown for the world. And I hope it's something at that scale, not bigger. So I hope that the damages will be very much limited.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. It's fascinating to get it from the seat that you're sat in, because you're so close to, the level of investment and the amount of change that's happening.
I mean, where we are, investors rush to us. They come to us. Everybody wants to have a piece of AI and data center industry.
Yeah.
People who have never ever engaged on the data center front now want to be in the data center industry. They want to invest. They don't know where to put the money. They know that they want to be in the data center industry, but they don't know where should they build data centers. Should they even be building data centers or operating them? Should they just buy existing assets or build greenfields? If building, where should they build them? What size? Should they be cloud data centers, edge data centers, core data centers, AI, inference or learning? What size, what scale, what capacity? There's so many questions. There's so much money. One problem that this industry does not have is cash. There's so much money in this industry. And we're fortunate to be at the heart of it.
A buddy of mine, Gaurav Mathur, he's just taken the role with JLL, the big property company, and he is their chief AI officer for Saudi. And he was just talking about the kind of abundant activity in this space. Like, everybody is talking about it and trying to work out how to maximize the opportunity of it. And it's interesting because we hear a bit about it on the data center bit, but it's all more about the LLMs. It's all more about the innovation in LLMs and agents, etc. We don't really get too much of a window over the size of these investments and the scale of them.
Yeah, so Saudi just announced a 6.2 gigawatt AI hub.
Right.
And UAE announced a 5 gigawatt AI hub with G42. And we just announced a huge project in Oman, which is aimed to be 9 gigawatt, 3 gigawatt hubs, which is the largest AI supercluster project in the world today. So that's the landscape of the Middle East. And, there's abundance of money, there's abundance of will to be pioneering that sector of our industry. So everybody's pushing. And we hosted His Excellencies from Saudi Arabia, at our premise in Washington. And the conversation was around, the same topics. They want to build the biggest, the greatest AI hubs in their country. They're committed. And there is also a big regional race and a global race. So everybody wants to be ahead.
They can mobilize very, very quickly, can't they?
Yes.
When you look at this today, what do you see as the biggest threats to it? Because when I think of the innovation, there's different areas of innovation, isn't there? Like, if we see neuromorphic AI, so, where we go into this biology kind of where it's more like a biological brain, which uses a different type of power. Do you see any other existential threats to the rise of data centers? Because everyone is so hard in on it.
No, I personally don't see any threats with the build out of data centers, because data centers are harmless. They're buildings with just rendering data. What is the threat is the algorithms, the processing of data and how you process them and for whom you process them and for what intent.
Yep.
So data centers are like airports, like airplanes land and take off on runways. Data lands and takes off from data centers.
Yes.
So having airports are harmless, but making sure you have the right pilots, you have the right planes, you have the right safety for your airplanes, that is what you need to care for. Yeah.
How are data centers built? What's the foundational challenges of the way they're built today?
So in terms of how they're built, you need the land, you need power, you need water, you need to stay away from natural hazards. You try to stay away from areas that have chances of, hurricane, tsunamis, I don't know, earthquakes.
Yep.
You stay away from, try to stay away from airports. You try to stay away from areas where there is a risk that might be associated with that specific site.
Yep.
Once you select the site, and this, by the way, this all used to be good until a few months ago, but now everybody will get any site that has power because there's just a big shortage of power. So
Right.
People are just hungry for power. But anyways,
How do you define power there, by the way? So what does that site, what level of access to power does it need?
you need hundreds of megawatts now. So,
Hundreds of megawatts.
Yes, per site. So, I mean, when we help our clients and we help with investors to select sites. We look for 300, 400 megawatt, 1 gigawatt, 2 gigawatt. So you try to, and you also look at the scalability. So if you get a 300 megawatt site, but can you scale up to 1 gigawatt in the next 5 to 6 years? So yeah, it's all about what kind of power can I get, and how can I scale in terms of my growth within that space. So once you get that, then you have the construction, of course, you design, then you do the building. We have something called the white floor and the gray floor in data centers. The white floor is basically the computer room. But because data centers, if you've ever been to a data center, it's where the computer racks are, the server racks. But they used to be traditionally built on raised floor. And raised floors were white, so that's why they call them white floor. And then the gray floor is the facilities. It's the UPSs, the generators, the chillers, all the facilities that support the function of the computer room.
Right.
It used to be a 50-50 split. So if a data center was, 100 square meter, 50 meter was computer room, 50 meter was supporting facilities. Because of the advancements of technology, data center size is not shrinking. The computer room is shrinking. So the facilities are expanding to support the computer room. But the computer room is becoming a nucleus. It's becoming a very small space where it just does, megawatt and megawatt of, compute supported by a huge gray area. Right. So the challenge in building data centers is how can I build, first of all, what kind of this, as an investor, depend on who you are. If you're a hospital, or if you're a university, that's easy because you need to build for your IT loads, you need, your applications, and you build data centers to meet your requirements.
Yep.
But everybody is challenged by how do I build a data center that is ready for future AI workloads? And then for what kind of AI chip? And then how long can these chips or this design or this specification last me? How can I build a data center that's not going to expire within the next 2 to 3 years? That's the main challenge right now.
That white space you're talking about, how big is that in a big data center? How big are we talking?
Thousands and thousands of square meter.
Right.
Yeah. You could, depending on data centers and applications, you could go to hyperscale data centers with huge computer rooms. Right. These are massive data halls next to each other, supported by redundant generators and chillers and UPSs. Everything is redundant, fault tolerant. It means that if something goes down, there is redundant units that take over. There is very stringent security protocols, who can go in, who can access. There is fire and safety issues that you need to be cautious about, because if data centers catch fire, it's a big issue.
Yes.
Especially with the immense power that's in these racks. They're basically the next utility, data centers. So you need to be very cautious. And there is no university in the world that truly teaches data centers.
Right.
So that's where we come in, and we really educate thousands of people globally on how to run data centers, how to manage data centers, how to build them, how to design them.
Yeah. What visibility do you have of Elon building his data center in 19 days or 21 days or whatever it is? Do you have much visibility of that? No,
I don't. And I don't believe anything that we've built in 19 or 20. No. Being a data center expert, I don't believe that such a thing exists. A data center is not just a place that computes. It needs to have some sort of facilities and some sort of thought process behind it. You need to cool this place, which is the biggest challenge, by the way. And then you need to think of redundant paths on components in keeping this cooling and this power going
Yes.
in case of any maintenance or any failures. And by the way, it depends on what kind of data center you're talking about. So we have so many different kinds of data centers, so many different breeds of data centers, and based on their implication and their application and their intent for their end use, the data center design specification will be different. So you see, people building data centers and talking about going to the moon or doing things under the ocean. I don't really believe in, gadgets. I believe in hardcore deployments of real data centers, which require a lot more thought process and scalability. So a lot of these deployments, they look nice, they help the stock prices go up, but they're not scalable. And when you put something under the sea, what do you do with corrosion? What do you do with salt? What do you do with maintenance? How do you hire divers to go down or bring these containers up to maintain them?
It was Microsoft that were investigating that, wasn't it?
They did that, but as you can see, their biggest data centers are not under the ocean. So it's not a scalable solution. Or people talk about going to high altitudes, like, in basics of mechanics, when you go too high, your mechanical units they slow down in functioning. So you can't really, so we're not there yet, technology-wise.
Yes. And space is the other one.
So, yeah, space is a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I guess out there they've got an abundance of power, haven't they, from the radiation from the sun?
Yeah, that's what they say, but again, building a grid on the moon, and we can't even figure things out on the Earth. So
yes,
I don't think we're there yet.
No, I think we're some way away.
And cost of shipping stuff to the moon and maintaining and repairing, it's just phenomenal. I mean, it's not feasible.
What's the impact on employment for them? Because is there a big demand in skills to build and then maintain these?
Yeah. So data center industry is probably one of the industries that's short on manpower.
Right.
And we're going to be hiring millions of people globally for data centers, because a lot of data center work is, believe it or not, manual. And it has to have manual intervention and human capabilities on site.
Okay.
So there's a lot of innovation. AI has, helped a lot. There is systems called, DCIM, Data Center Infrastructure Management. There is BMS systems, there is EMS systems that bring you data and they help automate the processes. But you still need people on site that actually can patch the cable, can take a server out, put a server in, can make decisive decisions in event of a critical issue. So, yeah, we're short on manpower.
And I guess they're continually going to be upgrading the infrastructure as well as new processes.
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. Definitely.
Yeah. This is going to be a moving feast.
Yeah, and everything in this industry is a moving target. What was good 2 years ago is not good anymore. What was good 6 months ago is not good anymore. And if you're not agile in this industry, you're already expired.
Yes. Yeah, that's what we say. Standing still, you're going backwards.
Yes.
Very, very rapidly.
Yeah, there is no comfort zone in our industry.
Yeah, so interesting. It's unbelievable. I'm kind of jealous of you actually getting to wander around in these incredible environments.
Actually, one of the benefits of my work is that I get to travel the world. And by doing that, I learn from everybody. And not only I learn from the way people design their data centers or build their AI platforms, but also I learn from their cultures, their challenges, and their social economical issues.
Yes.
That's why we elevated our work from AI and data centers to digital economy, because we believe that what we do is fundamental to the future of economies. And if you go to our website, it says building sustainable digital economies for the world. We're not in the business of building data centers. We're in the business of building digital economies. And the way you do that is, you create the manpower, you create an ecosystem, you create legislation, you bring investments, you help the policymakers, you work on global alliances, you build the right infrastructure, you try to prevent wastage of resources. It breaks my heart when I see a building that was built 3 years ago to be demolished. All that concrete, all that power, cooling. So people need to get wiser. We need to invest on building data centers and infrastructure that will last. And because we want to just speed to market and speed to deployment is our number one task today, we fail to be wise in deployments. So again, we don't think. Again, it goes back to my saying that we're not thinking long term, and that's one of the biggest drawbacks for environment, because you build these buildings and then you demolish them and then you do start again. But people need to realize that we got to build core and shell that can last.
The issue you do have there, though, is that we can only predict what the future holds with that infrastructure, can't we?
It's very difficult to predict.
Yes. Yeah, so making it as adaptable and flexible and dynamic.
Well, I mean, the data center industry, I could tell you, is one of the most flexible and innovative industries of our world today. A lot of innovation happening. A lot of dynamics. Designs have become much more dynamic, so that you could take 2 racks out, keep 1 rack in, have more density, but then don't take out the cooling. There's different ways of preserving your investment.
Right.
But again, there's only so much you can do when chips are changing every 5 minutes.
Yes. Yeah, so you can modularize it to an extent.
Yes. Yes.
Let's go back to that digital economy. So you have said before a few times that the future GDP will be linked directly to your compute.
Yes.
That's the currency of the future.
Yeah, if you believe that we're going to be paying with tokens in a token economy, then your HPC, your high performance computing capabilities, will be directly correlated and linked with your GDP output and with your total national gross domestic product, or your ability to produce as a nation economically. So your ability, and if AI is going to lead the future, your ability to have the right amount of computing capacities is directly linked to the future of your economy.
I understand that, I think. I mean, I understand that your access to it, there's 2 different things there. Your sovereignty is one thing, right? But then your GDP, I guess, is another in terms of actual, your revenue that you're driving from it. The revenue aspect of that being linked to your computational power, I guess, how do you see that working? Just help me understand that. I understand the sovereignty bit and the risks of that. You've amplified that for me, and I totally get it. Help me understand the direct relationship between.
So if you don't have the computing capabilities to render AI data, how can you generate enough tokens to expand your economy? If the economies of the future are going to be driven by AI, by your ability to think faster and better because of a new tool called AI. And if you don't have the right computing capabilities to support and sponsor a capable AI for your country at different industry verticals, then how can you even have a productive economic trajectory for your country? It's impossible, because to me it's like you don't have enough water to provide irrigation to the farmlands. And how can you have an agriculture economy? If you have a digital economy, you must have enough capacity to compute. And if you don't have that, then you don't have a digital economy. And if you're not a digital economy, in the next few years, you're just not going to exist. And you just become a backward country that, it's good for modern day colonialism, where people just come, take the resources and leave. There's nothing for you to say on the global stage. You're not smart enough, basically.
We might all be joining them.
Yeah.
There'll be the guys that left behind who are like, we're going to go live over there. But
actually, Europe, in my opinion, is not doing a great job. The entire Western world is not doing a great job compared to the opportunities that are available to us in the West. We have access to the best innovation. We don't have export controls. We don't have all these issues that a lot of people are challenged with all over the world. And yet, we are not investing in the right places. So I don't see it impossible for the Western countries to start relying on other countries to produce data for them, and in a decade or so, if we don't change policy and if we don't take the right actions.
Yes, Europe seems to be leading on the policy front, but behind on really accelerating investment meaningfully. Proportionately, it does seems like they're way behind. And I agree with you. You said something there earlier, which is investing behind the right things. And it's
Yes.
very obvious right now that this is a race that they need to be at the front of.
Yeah, you got to be in front of it.
Yes.
Yeah, and not be afraid of the challenges. Solve every problem at a time, and collaborate with the rest of the world. So, for example, there was a deal between UAE and France and Italy, 40 billion, 200 billion. Those are positive moves, where you go to places where they have money and resources and you bring them to Europe. There has to be bilateral, talks and investments, and that's the only way to progress.
Yes. Yeah, and that comes back to this unification, doesn't it? You're unifying rather than polarizing.
Yes.
Where does that strong moral compass come from, mate?
I don't know. I just I feel like I just care for the world. I don't. That's cliche to say, but I really do. I'm a citizen of this planet that cares for what happens on the streets and what happens to all of us in different colors and shades. If you travel as much as I do and pack your bag and within a day or less than a day sometimes and go to another place or another country, you see that life is such a short journey. Every time you go to a hotel room, you unpack and you feel like, okay, this is where I put my cell phone charger, this is where I put my laptop, and that's where I'm going to hang my clothes. You feel like you're settled, and then 24 hours later you pack and you leave. That's life. So if you do that often enough, like I do, nothing is worth losing the peace and the prosperity of this planet. So I really care, and when I see somebody in Singapore or somebody in Malaysia or somebody, a Uber driver in Italy, they all have kids, families, dreams. We all of us share common goals and common positive vibes.
Yeah.
Everybody wants a better life. Everybody. We're all the same species. And if we can't find a way to work with each other, and in our case has become difficult to, for people of the same country to live side by side.
When you're talking about this AI environment and this industry, it's very easy to think about that kind of top 2 or 3% of the world, top 5% that it affects in business, in corporations, in governments, and I think it's very easy to forget about the impact it's going to have on, the 3 million truck drivers in the US.
Yeah, and it's not comforting to read that, these guys are buying islands and building bunkers and preparing for the end of the world. I mean, it's not comforting for a truck driver to read that stuff, right? So we're living in an era where a portion of society, a very small portion of society, has nothing to do with the entire rest of the world. And that total disconnect, and that small fraction has abundance of information, abundance of intelligence, abundance of funds and resources. And the rest of the world is basically puzzled. What's going to happen to us? What's the future look like? We don't have visibility. So people on the ground, they don't have visibility. And that is not comforting to citizens of the world. And if we don't try to solve that, and these speeches and these, dialogues and the stuff that you hear, they're all surface talk. I don't think anybody really reveals what's deep in their hearts and what's really on their mind, because that's the secret to the success of their business. So, the access they have to the information that they have is the reason they're so successful, and they're not just going to give it to you for free.
That's the challenge, isn't it? When you hear about Nvidia becoming a $10 trillion company, or Tesla setting bonus targets for Elon to make it a $20 trillion company of Tesla, it's those are the warning shots that everybody should be thinking about. The extreme level of investment. I see it from your seat now. I mean, like you've got a ringside seat of the level of investment. Like we said, the bricks that are hitting the ground, the boots that are entering these data centers and laying the cables.
Yes.
It's such a scale.
Yeah.
And if you even say that there's a moderate proportionate increase in AI capability based on the compute. Even if you say that rate slows down slightly, but it continues. It doesn't have to go far to get from where we are today to a level of intelligence that can outperform us as humans in the majority of tasks.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, and the big thing for me, and what the Curious is about, what I do here is, the reason I'm sitting down with people about neural brain interfaces and then data centers, and I'm trying to build a picture of what the future looks like. Because these technologies are accelerating, they're supporting one another's evolution and innovation, and it's the compounded impact of them that really keeps me up at night. And I think about when I think about AI, power, robotics, innovation in batteries, compute, synthetic biology, and you start to, these are all the ingredients of every sci-fi movie we ever saw as a kid. That they are absolutely all of the ingredients, aren't they? They are just, you're talking about cyborgs, integration of technology. You're talking about superhuman kind of innovation of DNA. It's on, the writing's on the wall.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling. And again, the biggest problem is nobody has wrapped their head around this. And as soon as you think you have done it, it just evolves to a whole different stage. And then you're again behind. So it's we're not far from, as you said, a stage where we just have no chance against AI in terms of our ability to perform versus AI. You don't need to have Elon's company become a $20 trillion for us to see that. I think it's very near. But in terms of those valuations, I don't believe in those valuations. I believe that these are all overvalued. The valuations in the U.S. in general, I think they're going to create another immense bubble. And if that bubble bursts, it's not going to be just a depression.
Yeah.
So I'm worried about that stuff.
So there's two different bubbles there, isn't there? There's a valuation bubble, and then there's a technology bubble. And I think
technology is not a bubble.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's absolutely.
Technology is substantiated.
Two, right?
Technology is substantiated. It's backed. It's solid, and it's not going anywhere. And it's not a bubble. But the valuations, in my opinion, everything is overvalued in the U.S.
It really depends, doesn't it? When you come back to that direct. So if you talk about your view on the kind of digital economy, and you say that the future currency is going to be directly related to compute, right? And then you see compute, the infrastructure over 5 years has sixfold minimum.
Yes.
It'll be more, right? But then if you said, let's just say that there's over the next 5 years, let's say that there is a 3 times improvement in the speed and processing power of the GPUs. It'll be way more, right? But let's just take that. That's 6 times 3. That's an 18 times improvement in the capability and the computational power, right? And so if we come back to that point that you talk about around relating it to GDP, there is a possibility that we see this doubling, tripling of the size of the economy.
Yes. So regarding your 18 times or, I usually don't like to throw numbers because
yes.
I have seen that how things play out. You can't really attach too many numbers to this stuff, but you see the trajectory. I can give you some indications. So for example, NVIDIA pods, the typical NVIDIA pods are 150K per cabinet today. And, they were testing 600K. And now they're testing 1.2 megawatt per cabinet. So imagine the same footprint, let's say a square meter, that you were doing 150 kilowatts. You do almost 1.2 megawatts.
Wow.
That's a 10x growth in less than a year.
Yes.
So that shows that even the 18x might be very conservative.
And I think that's, I mean, look, absolutely. And I'm trying to be, I mean, I'm a tech optimist, right?
Yeah.
And I try not to kind of over-amplify
I'm an
these
optimist
things.
too, because I wrote a blog about this maybe 10, 15 years ago. I don't know when. We all think that politicians are corrupt, and they are there because they know how to lie and cheat and what have you. But I believe that technology is going to make them very sincere, because we're going to be living in a world where everybody generates digital footprints. So I am of a belief that if somebody wants to run for US president or UK's prime minister, they should happily hand over the social media accounts and say, okay, guys, go see who have been over the past 20, 25 years. And then you just see how they chatted with their friends, what language they use, what tone they use, what kind of personality, how do they get upset. And then once you have that kind of access and visibility into somebody's character, then somebody who reaches a level of a president or a prime minister has to be a sincere person.
Yep.
So I believe that technology is an enabler to bring the good people to the surface. And I think it's the only way out for us, by the way.
Yes.
So, like you, I believe that, at the end, everything is positive.
It's interesting you say that, because I see transparency as being the answer to it as well.
Yes, yes.
I think that transparency is a big part of the future, where companies are going to have to be more and more and more transparent with how they operate and what their data is, like full transparency. Because there's no way that people can ever say, you can have all this data, all this power, without us absolutely understanding every square inch of what you're doing.
Yes.
So I think that's a lens that will sit firmly over the industry. But with that, you are right that it's becoming more and more difficult for, let's just say politicians, but people in general, to evade the lens of social media and the digital world and cameras and all this kind of stuff. And I think that's going to expedite. I agree with you that actually there's going to be a digital footprint that people should have to hand over to be in roles of such public responsibility.
Yeah, you're being watched, you're being recorded, everything you do is creating a digital footprint. In modern cities of the world, you cannot be in a place in the city without, your point of presence being known. So it's almost impossible to be a bad guy and claim that you're a good guy. If people who know it, they know it. And that more and more, this is going to become public information.
Yeah.
And people have to demand for it. For example, for elected officials, when somebody wants to run for election or as a candidate, people should say, we want to know who this guy is.
Yes.
And that should be part of the requirement. And if you think you got too much dirt on you, then don't run for election.
Yeah, agreed. But they have to pay them more to do that, though.
No. I think they know how to make money.
Yeah, so maybe it's transparency plus incentive. That's there's a combination of things there, isn't there? Jesus, man. I mean, crikey, the things I would have been saying to my mates back in my 20s, I'm not sure I'd want anyone to see that. But you're right. It's but that is the way forward, 100%.
It's the only way you're going to have the right people leading countries and societies, because what you did when you were in your 20s is a reflection of where you were and where you are today.
Yep.
And people deserve to know that, because you're claiming that you're an angel and everything is perfect about you. So you need to present that. You need to show that my life's history has proven that I have a track record of this.
Yes. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think when you come back to that transparency piece, you can imagine, can't you, that being the winning formula, where, which LLM do you use? Are you a Google guy or are you an OpenAI guy? But actually, if someone does give you absolute full transparency and gives you complete transparency of what's happening with your data, where what their models are, they say, well, look, we're completely open to audit, open sourcing this whole piece. People can scrutinize every aspect of this, get it out into your Substacks and into your Reddits. And that is going to earn that will get the greatest adoption of customers. If you've got a comparable model where people can sit there and go, look, we know that this is under total public scrutiny. Yeah. So the likelihood of the leadership doing anything other than their best job. Whereas when we look at the big tech platforms before, it's always been a bit like, smoke and mirrors as to which, where are they pushing their next kind of play with us as a consumer. Yeah. And so you can see that being a big part of that future.
Same thing with companies, with individuals,
yes,
with marriages, you name it. I mean, everything is going to be tightly monitored, and therefore you have access to abundance of data, and you can make better decisions based on your access to data. It's just that, again, you need to know your rights, and this goes back to data rights, privacy, a lot of topics about who has access to what kind of data. And these are things that, again, need to be discussed.
When you look through your longer-term tech optimistic lens, what are the positive things that you see happening in the future?
I see a world where we could diagnose cancer 20, 30 years before it occurs. Now in Abu Dhabi, they can tell you if you have indications of cancer many, many years before it even shows up. And it's amazing how, by the way, I think they're number one country right now in that level with that level of advancement.
Right.
I see a world where, traffic accidents, people will not die for stupid reasons, will be limited because, everything is properly monitored. Cars will just have, their brake. I mean, if somebody is a thief and steals your car, the police will just press a button and the car will get locked until the police arrives. It's just going to bring, hopefully, more safety, more security, more peacefulness, and better access to resources globally. Because one of the things that technology does is it connects the world, whether you like it or not, no matter how you create boundaries between countries. We are a connected world. We're a global village, and we need each other's resources. So somebody has oil, somebody has solar, somebody has manpower, somebody has minerals, and we need each other's resources. What technology does is it accelerates our resourcefulness and our need or our necessity on each other's resources. So as an individual, as a citizen, you will have access to what's happening in Pakistan and how does it affect your food chain and your supply chain and everything that sits on your table today, at your kitchen table, at your house. So you will see, okay, this item in my grocery store is coming from here, and therefore, our ties with that country means $2 more on tomatoes, for example. Yeah. So if you are somebody, hopefully, that doesn't get dummified by the adoption of AI, you just have so much more information for you to digest. And according to that, create new businesses, ideas, innovation. Every house could become an incubator for businesses. You can create businesses with your fingertips. Basically, you have an idea and you just tell AI to create an application for it. You don't need to go hire, hundreds of programmers. And you can create teams of agents that can help push your idea forward and help you prevent making mistakes. So it just becomes a more efficient world. So overall, I'm optimistic. I think that technology is going to make life better. But again, for us to be there, for us to get there, for us to even see that day, we need to create the right frameworks that help us go from point A to point B. And that requires knowing the milestones that are on the way and how we can achieve them one by one.
People talk about, we don't want digital IDs and we don't want to be in a digital state and we don't want the state control over us. But I really feel like the most dangerous place we can be in right now is in the middle of A and B.
Yes,
right.
I agree
which
with
is
that.
Where we've got malign actors which have access to technology, but the infrastructure hasn't been set up to control and govern.
I'm a believer that state needs to control. And I believe in that because you need to trust your state. You need to trust your government. And if you don't trust your government, then there is a deeper issue. So if we elect our own government and we trust our government, then when the state has control, it's good for us because we're just going to have an exponential level of security,
Yep.
better healthcare, better everything. But if you don't trust the government, that's a whole different topic. You got to fix your government, or you got to fix your relationship with your government, and that's a whole, it's a whole different topic.
Yeah. So you're back to transparency, which means that you're able to see a future where the work that's being done by government, the people that are operating within it, there's a much higher degree of transparency, whereas it's been completely closed door, behind the curtain operators. And there's so much speculation about, again, malign actors in the state.
Yes, of course. I mean,
that's what needs ironing out to build that trust, isn't it? It's more transparency.
I mean, look at the intent of what is the government supposed to do. I mean, the whole intent of having a government is to serve the people. And if the government is not serving the people, then you have, again, a deeper issue.
Yes.
So we need to, first of all, make sure our governments are, the right governments, our democratic processes are leading into electing the right people and selecting the right people that are qualified to do the job. Unfortunately, around us, worldwide, you don't see too many competent world leaders and, administrators of government. All these Harvard and MIT professors, all these experts and scientists, all these lawyers and engineers, and all these qualified people around the world, they're nowhere to be seen on the political arena. You have people who know how to walk the talk, who know how to entertain on TV, who know how to deal with media, and basically good salesmen, right? Because they can win elections, because they can,
Yes.
beat people in debates. But you don't have people who are deep thinkers, who are long-term planners. And we used to have that. We used to have that globally. We don't have it anymore. And we need to rethink the way our world is built, because the system breeds this. So how do you build a society that breeds thoughtful leaders and welcomes them? I mean, if you have a leader that you believe is shameful. Why do we even have this person as our president, as our prime minister, as our king, or whatever? Then you have to question yourself. Why? I live in this society. How did we even come to vote for this guy? Who supports him? And there is deeper issues in the society that needs to be tackled.
Yes.
So once we reach, my assumption is you have a government that you trust. If you trust your government, then the more information that the government has, the better it can serve you. So that's the bottom line, basically.
Yes. These 19th century bureaucratic kind of operating systems that we call government today,
They're not performing anymore.
no, and they're just being proliferated, aren't they, by this globalized, fast-moving, dynamic, fluid world, and that's just accelerating. And like you said at the start of this chat, what they do today is taking them 12 months to get here, and that's 12 months too late. And so it's the rate of change, and
it used to be that governments had better access to information,
Yeah.
and it's not the case anymore. So, for example, Department of Defense of U.S. now, Department of War, had $800 billion budget, right? It was like huge. Therefore, they had abundance of money. They could research, the U.S. military invented the internet, basically, DMZ, LAN, WAN. These are all military terms that are used in networking. But then you have companies who are $4 trillion, $3 trillion now, that they can swallow entire Ministry of Defense of a country. Now, these entities have bigger advancements. They have the smartest people that work for them. They lead the innovation. They lead research. So the big tech and the tech companies today have better access to information, and they have better visibility sometimes than some governments.
yes,
Therefore, a very synchronized collaboration between public and private sector is required for this world to move forward.
yeah, there's no doubt that they have to adapt quickly, and whether that's through partnership or innovation as well.
Yeah.
But the one wonderful thing about AI is that it can work independently of traditional tech stacks.
Yes.
So you don't need to, re-engineer the whole tech stack to get access to incredible tools and technology.
Yeah.
They can circumvent that and go straight to the source. And so I always talk about the fact that when we talk about anything, we generally talk about it in isolation, and we go, well, what about cybercrime? It's going to exponentially increase with AI. But we're like, well, cybersecurity is also going to rapidly increase in parallel with it.
Yes.
It doesn't kind of stand still. And I can't help but think that governments and states' biggest opportunity will be to build and deploy and become more AI native, basically. They'll be able to make significant change without having to go through the kind of traditional change that an organization or a state or a government might have needed to be in order to get access to that information. And so I'm hopeful that they will also benefit from the ability to move quicker than they would have with maybe how we may have seen them operate historically.
Yes. Well, they have to adapt with AI platforms, which have to come from the private sector because the government is just too far behind. So the private sector is the leader here, and the government is the adopter. They have to adopt it. To your point about cybersecurity, the bigger the vector, the bigger the risks for cyber breaches and cyber attacks. As you said, AI is going to also accelerate the growth of cybersecurity and cyber attack preventions. So I think overall the future is going to be a safer future. There's so many loopholes right now. There's so many vague areas. There's so many gray areas right now that AI is going to identify and fix, hopefully. But again, with the right control, with the right management, with the right algorithms, with the right intent.
So why should governments be prioritizing AI digital infrastructure?
Because if they don't, they're not going to be relevant anymore. A government that is not cognitive and is not fit and it's not AI ready is just going to fall so behind the private sector that it's not going to serve the private sector anymore. It's not going to serve individuals. Like a kid with walking with his phone is more smart and more agile than the government. You cannot have that. You need to have governments that are smart, that are capable, that can address the day-to-day challenges of the world with proper computing capacities and capabilities, which goes back to, can the government build the right digital infrastructure? Are they building them? And the answer is no, they're not, because every government you speak to, with the exception of some Middle Eastern countries and people who are extremely rich, they have budgetary limitations. They have, well, in the US we're going through shutdowns, but in general, if you can get through budget cycles and by the time you're done with the budget cycle, is the requirement still valid? So governments need to reinvent themselves. Otherwise, building digital infrastructure to the pace and the scale that we're building for government is not relevant anymore. And governments need to prioritize that as a matter of national security, as a matter of national sovereignty, as a matter of serving their citizens and their residents. Because without it, it's just there's no future. I don't see a future for governments without implementing this.
So from where you're sat, how far away are we from significant improvements in AI to get to this higher level of what we might deem to be AGI?
I don't think we're very far.
Right.
I don't think we're very far. I mean, seeing the diminishing capabilities of human beings at the same time the rising exponential rise of AI's capabilities, we're not that far off. And I think we're going to reach a point where machines decide, not only analyze and suggest, but they will decide. It's time will tell, but I think over the next 6 to 12 months, we're going to see huge advancements, which are going to create more clarity as to how far we are truly from that point.
Yes.
So
So we've seen a massive increase in Grok's capability over the last 6 months.
Yes.
Its imaging capability, it's now got a new release. But my understanding is that they're only using 25% or 30% of their current data center capability. They're still growing into that. In that example, should we then expect to see significant increase directly correlating with the gigawatt capacity that increases from that?
Yeah, I don't think that they're using a portion of their data center capacity. I think they're using what they can use and what they have to use. But data center capacities are not built in advance. They're built in parallel with the load.
Right.
So the load is not there yet. So if you see an entity consuming X amount of megawatts or gigawatts, they have a pipeline for growth. And that pipeline is majorly built around their ability to adapt with the new loads, with the new workloads. So sometimes the application is not there. Sometimes the use cases are not there. The use cases of AI are the number one priority right now. How do you get the right use cases in place? And once you have those use cases, then it will just take off. It will just take off to a whole different level. But I think one of the biggest bottlenecks, as opposed to what people might think, is the absence of data center capacity. There is so much AI can do today, even today, but there is not enough power for it to do it. So that's one of the biggest bottlenecks. And because of where we are and what we do, we see people rushing into trying to secure power 6 years down the line. They're booking power for 6 years from now. And they're signing contracts for, a land that will have power by 2032. So you can see the trajectory of where things are going. There's going to be immense requirement for power. And that lack of power availability is the bottleneck that is slowing AI down, which might be a blessing for the world to have a little bit of leeway to be able to grasp the whole concept of AI and adopt it properly, so that we have all the ethical and moral issues that we discuss also embedded within the economy.
It's been a pleasure to spend time with you, Mehdi.
Thank you very much.
I know, on your wild travels. Where are you off next?
Nigeria.
Nigeria.
Yeah.
Are you talking to the state there or private?
There is an event hosted by the state where the Barcelona team, is playing the Nigerian team in Abuja.
Okay.
And I'm supposed to be the keynote for the event, so I'm going to meet some Barca players.
Oh, amazing. Great. I'd love to continue and track this data center, journey, because it's going to be a wild ride over
It's a wild ride.
Yeah.
Very exciting journey for everybody.
Yes.
And everything we do on day-to-day basis is linked with the growth of this industry. So, a few years ago, nobody knew what data centers are. Now everyone is asking about them, and we're happy to be at the forefront of this. So, anytime, I'll be more than happy to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's it, mate. Back to that opening statistic, right? 96% of the first year's growth in GDP in the US came from investment in AI. So you're in the right place, and most importantly, you're flying both flags, right? You're a proponent of the opportunities that come from it, but it's great to see someone else who's got a really strong moral compass, who's flying the flags of the risks of it as well.
Thank you. We try to be holistic in our approach.
Yeah.
There is only so much money you can make in the world, and there is always a moral and ethical piece to everybody's business and everybody's mission that becomes the main game changer, and it becomes the key factor, key driver. So we wake up every morning really, truly thinking about how we can make a better world. So how do you build a better world for everybody? And if what we do with our expertise, putting the monies and the investments in the right places, building the right infrastructure in the right places, putting the right GPUs and the right AI and the right, algorithms in the right data centers, and then helping countries create jobs, create transparency. I mean, it just gives you a whole different level of satisfaction and gratitude, as opposed to just, making money and moving on. So we live by that, motto, and it gives us pleasure to do it.
Good. Yeah, well, look, the intent of the people that are leading it is probably the most important quality right now,
100%.
and characteristic that we need to be looking at.
100%.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank
I appreciate
you.
your
Thank you
time.
for
Thank
having
you
me.
so much.
Thank you.